Hello, everyone. Welcome to part 4 of our client experience series. Whitney and Brianna here. If you haven't already, go back and tune into the previous 3 episodes. This is episode 4 of all things about crafting your signature client experience. For today's episode, we're really excited because we're actually taking a bit of a different approach to this one. On Instagram, we asked everyone, as well as through our newsletter, what questions you have for us regarding your client experience. So in today's conversation, Brianna and I are going to go through some of questions that you all submitted to us, and we're just going to answer them from our experience, from our insights, from what we've learned, things we've tried. And hopefully you can pick out a nugget or two from some things that people ask and from what we share. So Brianna, what is the first question that we've got for today?
Yeah. Should we put a disclaimer like none of these suggestions are set in stone, made to be like the Holy Grail or the Bible, but what they are is an opportunity to just share knowledge and information. And it's always helpful and beneficial, I think, to utilize what other people might be doing and try it on for size, so to speak. Like you have to look through the lens of your brand, your business, your own client experience that takes a look at your brand and your ideal client and say, hey, does this fit? Is this in alignment? And can I consider it? And sometimes the answer is going to be, yeah, no, that doesn't the work for my business. And it's okay.
I think we find ourselves saying this a lot inside the Advisor Accelerator, is that everybody's always very collaborative, kind of throwing out ideas. Well, this is what I do, or this is what I've tried, or I did this and I didn't like it. And there's a lot of people who say, oh, you do X, Y, and Z. The Loom videos that we talk about a lot is a really good example of people saying, well, you do Loom videos, so I feel like I have to do Loom videos. And my reaction is always like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Does a Loom video make sense for your brand? Does a Loom video make sense for the trips that you are planning? And most importantly, does a Loom video make sense for your clientele? Loom videos are not for everybody. We know plenty of clients who never watch Loom videos. Right. And so there are client segments out there for which they won't watch them. They don't like them. They don't feel like they need them. And so anything that we share should always be taken back through that filter of like, absolutely. Is this for me? Should I try this? Does it make sense?
Yes. And then the reason I think we're doing this is because I think we've been committed to staying an open book and really just sharing kind of our experiences in the hopes that if it does help you, yay, amen, because we're not about kind of like hiding or share, like not being willing to share. And so treat that for what it is. Let's dive in. We have a lot of great questions and I want to make sure we get to as many of them as possible. So Carol asks a question, I need some creative ideas for how to level up the pre-travel experience for my clients. Well, I don't want to get into the habit of sending a package of goodies before the clients travel. I would like to increase the touch points beyond packing tips, check-in reminders, bon voyage emails. So I would love to hear some creative ideas for that. And what I loved about Carol's question is that like when we really dive into like the phases of client experience, which we'll go deep when we do our masterclass of creating your own signature client experience, this phase of the client experience, this discovery phase is really when you're kind of like setting the bar for showing clients kind of like who you are, what your brand is about, and getting the opportunity to personalize the experience for them, to really customize it, to enhance it in certain ways. And so I think that's what her question is getting at. And I think it's a great one. And I think that there's a lot of different ways to kind of approach it. So what I was thinking, Carol, is, and this is going to be a little bit dependent too on, you know, how big of a client or a book of business that you have. Like, what are you able to do just like literally with the time that you have and what have you. But I really love in this specific phase being able to really hone in on the personalization aspect of how you are approaching it. So client specific recommendations that have to do with their particular type of trip. So that could be anything from books or movies or documentaries related to their destination. This can be just a thoughtful touch that kind of enhances their travel knowledge, but also gets them excited about where they're going. And quite honestly, when I say personalization, like you might build one for a certain destination for a certain client, but that does not mean that that is the one client who will ever get that like special reading list for Italy or what have you. So it's something that you can definitely tweak and use for other clients, but it also gives you an opportunity to get them excited about their trip and offer something a little bit unexpected. Like this is not like, hey, how to pack for Greece, but it could be like, like here's a cool book you can read. Here's a cool recipe you can try, what have you. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I love that idea. And the first thing that came to mind was content from approach guides, which is exactly what you're sharing. So I think that if a guide was created that included video content, kind of like YouTube videos versus documentaries versus books versus like super silly casual videos. Sometimes you can find like funny videos on YouTube that are like actors and actresses pronouncing words in a foreign language, so it's like very casual, but like fun, or like learning about like the cocktails that you should try in Greece versus like a documentary about the island of Delos, like that's very different content. So I think that's where the personalization comes in. It's like you have high level books, documentary/movies, and then like just video content. And then the personalization comes through. Is this client going to want something fun and hip and something to get them excited? Are they going to want like a 600-page book, or are they going to not want a book at all? Are they going to want like a magazine article? And so that's where the personalization comes in, is that you pick and choose what you send each client. But my mind immediately went to this as well, especially in addition, because it's time and not money to deliver this.
Exactly. And the other thing, I know you said not sending a package of goodies before the client travels. And I am still kind of like one of the old school people who like puts things in the mail, although
I love your enthusiasm.
I have cut back significantly.
Do it.
But what I have found, there is something to be said about like getting something in the mail.
For sure.
If it fits in your client experience or not is up for you to decide. But there is something to be said about like that excitement before a trip specifically of getting something in the mail. And I think we talked about this in one of our shop talks recently, how I switched from, because I used to do like the whole boxes and all of that and the time and the energy. And what I've switched to in the last couple of months, which I've found to be really kind of helpful, is finding a company where I can send in my PDF itinerary and they create a whole booklet and then mail it to the client on my behalf. And so the client still is getting a piece of snail mail, something about their trip, and it's less time and energy on my end. And like, look, I just have one right here because I'm creating something right now. So nobody else can see it, but you can see it, Whitney. This is actually
beautiful, guys.
It's beautiful, right? But this. I made one for myself for my trip to Greece, and I was so delayed that it got here after I departed. So,
classic example of like, don't let us plan our own trips.
It's like I was like, oh my god, this is so amazing. So now I'm just going to like use it for social media content, but whatever. It is something that clients really enjoy and are surprised to get. So that's what I would say for that, Carol. Like I said, run it through the filter, but I think that there are certain things that you can do that won't be as heavy of a lift, but still would be a nice personalized touch that you can provide for your clients. This is a little bit similar, but in a slightly different vein. Christy's question was, what is your process for client emails leading up to the trip? How do you plan them out? And I would love to hear what other advisors are doing. And I think this goes to the communication aspect of how we really can make sure that we're communicating enough for clients to feel really involved and really like know where everything is at and feel very comfortable and confident going into their trip. Again, running through the filter of what type of clients you have and how often they like to be communicated to. What you're trying to avoid, I think, is the client coming to you being like, is there anything we should be doing?
Yeah.
Just wondering when this final itinerary I should be expecting
I have all these questions. There's all these details.
Should we set up a itinerary? Like,
should we set up a call? Oh. I've had a lot of that lately. I don't know what is in the universe, but I've had a lot of it.
You should absolutely not. But if you're 70, maybe you need to, right? So
these clients weren't 70, unfortunately. They were like 40.
Like, what's going on? Let's just kind of share maybe our perspectives of what we're doing in terms of, let's say from the time that like a trip is confirmed until they depart, the amount of touch points that we have or emails that we're sending within that time frame. And of course, another kind of caveat would be that it might be tweaked. If I have 4 months from trip confirmation till departure, that's different than I have maybe a year and a half. Like maybe I do slot in a couple of other ones because it's like, did you ghost me? Are you still in business? You know, like there's not really, but I mean, I hope clients aren't thinking that. In COVID, they actually did. Like, I don't want to be like presumptuous, but do you still have a business?
Yeah, totally makes sense.
Yeah. So from that point to kind of like client departure, what do you do?
Okay. So from confirmed to departure. So one email that I have had a template for a long time and did not consistently implement it, which is a big part of client experience is consistency, until probably the last 8 months or so. And that has helped tremendously, is an email template that in the subject line, it is a brand new email thread. It is separate from the million of other emails we've exchanged with the client. The subject line is confirmed itinerary and deposited invoice. And this email is saying, everything is booked.
Yes.
And in this email, you have everything. You have the link to your itinerary, the link to your invoice, so that people aren't coming back and being like, when is that final payment due? It's like, everything is here for you. So many people come back and they're like, I can't find the link to my itinerary. I've been digging through emails. And I'm just like, this is the email that you need to save, just this one. And then it also includes, if they confirm trip protection and flights with me, I attach those in that email. And then it has a section that's like next steps. And so I'll say, final payments are due on X date. We will reach out to you a week in advance to gather authorization, i.e. you don't need to remember, you don't need to ask us. Then we will do restaurant reservations. Then we will prepare your final itinerary. Then we will send you a departure video 7 to 10 days before. And so it's literally one email that is like, here's everything. Mm-hmm. And we've got you covered all the way through departure. And it has dramatically decreased the number of emails I'm getting about all of these details.
And I literally started this email this year myself. So I feel like I'm same. I don't know why. I just expected people to know, like, we got it. But like,
for me, I think that I always knew that it should happen. And I think that, not verbally, but like through quick email exchanges, we're always like, yeah, that's booked. Yeah, that's deposited. You see the charge on your card, it's done. But like, that left everything open for so many questions. And I also felt, from my own very control freak perspective, this doesn't feel professional enough to me.
Yeah.
If people are spending thousands of dollars with us and their precious leisure time, I want to deliver something that is like, you are booked, you are confirmed, we've got everything under control. And I just always knew that needed to happen and just was not delivering it consistently. Mm-hmm. And so having my assistant support me with that has been a tremendous help.
Right. So if you don't do that already, just definitely consider how great that particular email is once everything is confirmed, booked, done, like for the peace of mind of that part of it. And then also one specific email that they can go back and refer to and not try to dig through the different chains. And then the next steps. And so it's clearly outlined.
Yes.
Outlined when they're going to next hear from you, mm-hmm. what that's going to be about. So that's fantastic. And then, so yes, the next steps on my end, outlining kind of like when the final payment is due. We do the concierge details 2 months out, and it comes from somebody else on my team, like the specific email. So I'm always I'm telling them, like, you are going to hear from so-and-so 2 months prior.
So are you reaching out about concierge details prior to final payment?
No, it's after final payment.
Yeah.
And hopefully that's a 2-month thing for me.
Got it.
Yeah. I arbitrarily make it so I can just like consistently do my.
So that's been kind of like an interesting point that I've discussed a lot with my assistant, is that like, we don't want to start concierge until final payments have been paid, because if there's any reason that final payments are not paid and this trip isn't moving forward, which is rare, but in the case that happens, concierge details are tremendously time consuming. And I
Right.
would hate for my team to spend hours and hours preparing something for then a trip to be canceled. As I'm saying this out loud, I'm realizing that happens so rarely that I should probably change my thought process on that, because
Like
my
you shouldn't
assistant,
build your workflow for those like one-off, like rare occasions. If it would work better for it to be a specific, just on your end, a specific point in the workflow, a specific time frame in front of the trip to get started on that.
I think that my assistant is often eager to get the concierge details started sooner rather than later, because she is now feeling the pressure and the stress of like snagging those dining reservations, for example, when clients are slow to respond. So, I mean, what do you think about this? Is it a weird workflow from a client perspective to like be doing concierge before payments are made? Or does that almost feel better? Because I have a lot of clients who are eager to do dining and spa reservations far earlier than they need to or have to.
What I have found works best for me is, unless it is like, we want these, 3 Michelin star restaurant, like, if it's like the focus of the trip, then that's happening. It's a
Yeah.
special situation. But just in regular, considering, number one, when and this again, because we know different destinations, it's like, oh well, restaurant reservations only open 3 weeks before, so I can't even, like, it is
Yeah.
what it is. But I have found that, like, as a workflow component, if I say from the 60-day mark to the 30-day mark is when we work on those trips concierge details, that is ideal for me. So they get the email 60 days out, and we have a 30-day window until we essentially close requests, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, in a
Yes.
perfect world. Are they being done
Yeah.
after that mark? Yeah, we're working on that. But we have that 30-day window for those trips that we're working on. So it's like she doesn't need to kind of like worry about the ones that are coming before or after. That's what that window is for. So if they, the back and forth, they're like, well, we want this. Oh, but this is going to work. Oh, well, what about this? There's enough time in those 30 days when things are going right to get that accomplished. So it's 60 days, send the email, get started working. At the 35-day mark, if nothing has been, hey, just a reminder, you have 5 days left to tell us, or else you're on your own. That is also part of the workflow.
That's part of our workflow as well. So I'll come back to that in a second. Let's say that your final payment was at the 30-day mark. Would you still start concierge 60 days out? Like, would you feel comfortable to start concierge prior to final payment actually having been processed?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because if I'm looking at like risk reward, I think the risk that like something goes wrong or things fall off the rails or whatever is definitely there. But the reward that my like team and myself have this in place to kind of like get this done, move it out of the way, get this done, move it out of the way, that by like 30 days, final payment and everything in their itinerary is set to go, feels a lot more comfortable and like easier to manage when we just kind of know, like, ready to depart is not all of the concierge details because final payment wasn't until 30 days. And now we have to go and like scramble, and it's just easier.
We're supposed to be answering questions here, but I think that thanks to this little chat, I'm going to change my process. I think that I'm also thinking about the experience that clients are receiving. And if you haven't heard from me for months, and now the first time you hear from me, which is what's currently happening in my workflow, is final payments are due. Okay, now we work on the fun stuff. How would it change psychologically the experience for clients if I reached out and I'm like, hey, we're 60 days out. Let's start planning some of the fun stuff, some of the fun details, the spa, the dining, blah, blah, blah. And then once that should be approximately wrapped up by the time final payments are actually due, so that then I can say, here, final payments are due. Here's the authorization. Okay, final payments have been made. Okay, we're going to be tweaking and fine tuning and crossing our T's and dotting our I's, and we'll be back with a final itinerary in about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Just saying it feels better.
It feels nice.
You guys, I'm changing my workflow. I'm switching them around.
That feels so much better. But the response is for Whitney.
Okay, so that's dining, that's final payment. And then what comes after that in your workflow?
And so after that is our, like, I guess it's like a getting ready to depart video or email. So
Email.
yes, that has just kind of like all the rundown of everything with their final itinerary. It's a beefy email, to be quite
Mine
honest.
too.
It's
Mine too.
beefy. And I don't know if anybody else kind of splits that up, but I feel like having it in one is, I feel like I err towards it being all in one place versus multiple places.
Me too.
Like,
Me
here's
too.
the one document that has your final itinerary. Here's the other document or email that's going to say like all these things that I really want to make sure that you know. Like, I just have it in one.
Do you also do a Loom video for departure, or do you only do that for proposal?
Yeah, departure videos in there as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So mine too. So I send one beefy email with it again, a new email thread, a new subject line.
Yeah.
So I'll say like undiscovered Italy departure prep.
Yes.
And I'm including everything in there from links to their itinerary, links to the Loom video, walking them through their final itinerary, but then bullet points saying all the same things. So that if you don't watch my video, then you can't say I didn't tell you. Points. You're still reading it.
Here is what you do when your flight is delayed. You do not call Brianna. You call Global first.
So I actually don't put that type of stuff in the email.
Those couple of things, like the in-country contact that I want to make sure that they're aware of, and especially for flights, since we don't do flights, because that's just like the first thing that like comes back to me.
Yeah.
So
that's actually a really good point. I've got all that contact information and all the verbiage of like, when shit hits the fan, do this. I've got that in the itinerary. Mm-hmm. I don't put it in the email. In the email, what I put is like, don't call me to cancel your restaurant reservation. All your hotels, tours, transfers are fully paid or they're not. So if they're like fully paid by a DMC or if they're booked with credit card guarantee, therefore the client has to pay when they get there, I detail that as like a bullet point in the email. Because I was getting too many text messages from the hotel front desks of like, has this been paid? And I'm just like, holy crap, people. So I started doing that. And then I leave a note about tipping, like tipping guidelines are in your itinerary. It's at your discretion, because I was getting way too many text messages while they're in the back seat of a private transfer saying, how much do we tip our guide? Stop it. Stop it. So that's what I put in my email.
Okay. Well, look at
like I have to swap emails and
try them on for size. Try both ways on for size and see how you feel. So yes, that, and then I know that you send a like right when they're at the airport email. I don't send that.
Bon voyage. Yeah.
Bon voyage. And then I send a check-in email 48 hours after departure.
Yep. I do a check-in email as well. I usually try to send it like on the morning after their first full day in destination, so that they've had like a private tour or they've had an experience or something to
give feedback on. Yeah.
So I can say, how was your first full day?
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah.
How's it going? We're still at the airport waiting for our transfer.
We're waiting to check into our rooms. I thought we got an early check-in. Oh shit.
Yeah. Oh, based on availability, I forgot that line.
Yeah. So it sounds like our processes are pretty similar. It's just a little bit of what we include is a tiny bit different.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hope that's helpful.
Yeah. Well, let's move on.
So
let us know if you have more questions.
Yes. So I like this next question. Go for it.
All right. This is from Ashley. Your question has to do with feedback. Basically, how to word the request for feedback in a way that actually is going to generate feedback, because we do truly care how an experience went. We're also trying to generate testimonials. We also are looking to kind of like fine tune our process. Like, there's so much help that comes from feedback that we want to know, like all this energy and time we poured into a trip, like how the heck did it turn out? Like literally tell me.
Feedback is great for improving our process, for getting testimonials, for all that stuff. It's also our dopamine hits.
Yes.
I mean, literally anyone. Yes. Like just get in my veins. This is why I do what I do, because when you write back and say, we loved this, we loved that, whatever it is, even if you have some feedback, like critical feedback, that's fine. That every single time I read that email, I think to myself, this is why I do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love those. So I totally agree with Ashley. I talked to her about this a little bit before our recording, and she just mentioned that like hardly anyone is responding. And I totally understand what she means. I feel lost when clients, like, I know that they had an okay time, I believe. I don't know, I believe, but like they literally came home like no response, no feedback, no good or bad. Just literally like, did you go on the trip?
Yeah. Like,
Because
am
like
I?
proof of life, proof of flight ticket, something like proof of boarding pass. So one thing I thought of when I read her question is that there's actually two types of feedback that I think we need to be really clear what we are seeking. Are we seeking feedback about their trip itself, like the hotels that they stayed at, the tours and experiences that they engaged in, things like this? Or are we requesting feedback for us and our service? Because
Right.
those are two different things.
Yep.
Um,
Yes.
how do you approach feedback in that
So,
regard?
right. I think I kind of mesh it together a bit. So I do it in a questionnaire form. Because I give them an option to, hey, just shoot me back an email. And some people do that and they just want to tell me what they want to tell me. And or they like beat me to it and like they're on the plane just sending their feedback.
Yeah.
But I offer a questionnaire form so I can guide people a little bit better. And, and for my own ease of like looking through things and getting the information I want. And so I kind of just put them both together. There are certain questions that are like about the trip overall, the certain components, hotels, activities, tours. And then there's like, hey, like about like our services, like good and bad. Is there anything you would wish we would have done differently? Is there anything that we could have offered to make your experience better? Which is things that I do take to heart. We have like team discussions about like the actual feedback we're given so that we can actually do something with it. So I know that you had a fabulous conversation in one of your podcasts with Jen Lee about this specific topic. And if you guys haven't listened to that particular episode, definitely check it out because I think she did, number one, a great job of differentiating these two types of feedback we're talking about, and also a lot of good ideas on how to specifically gain based on what you're after in that particular way
So
of
I actually need to
asking.
go back and re-listen to my own conversation. But what has stuck with me since talking with Jen about this is that I don't remember if she suggested this or if listening to her, I came to this idea. Regardless, what I took from it is actually asking for those two different types of feedback in separate instances.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, I remember thinking when I was talking to her, like, oh, instead of waiting 24 to 48 hours after they get home to ask, hey, how was your trip? Send them an email when you know they're in the airport getting ready to fly home.
Mm.
When it's like fresh, like they're not even like out of vacation mode yet. Just like I send a bon voyage when I know that they're sitting at the airport waiting to depart. And then let a few weeks pass to ask for feedback about like me and my service and planning with me, because those the feeling of working with a business doesn't go away, but the excitement of which hotel or tour you enjoyed most might dissipate after a few weeks. And so I'm actually sending one email within 48 hours, whereas my thought in talking with Jen was like, I should be sending one earlier to ask about the trip and one actually give it a few weeks and ask about my services. I haven't implemented this, but
Right.
this
It
was an
sounded
idea
good
that
though.
came
Yeah.
to me
I
when I
remember
was
that.
chatting with her.
Yeah, it was good. So, Ashley, I think that you can take a look at if nobody is responding, it's just an opportunity to tweak what you're doing and see what lands better. It's definitely the idea of open-ended questions, but
For sure.
that is going to like help people like, oh, but like give them something to answer. How was your trip? Is
Too big, broad,
it's
vague.
super.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
about it do you want to know? And so if it's like, hey, what aspect did you enjoy most? What did you think of your hotels? Did you whatever? Or like, are there any areas that you felt we could have improved or suggestions on how we could enhance our services? Like for you personally to kind of understand what is landing, what people actually appreciated, and what they felt was like, gosh, I really wish you would have like offered to make our dining reservations. I don't know, like,
Like fly over to Italy before my trip and scope out,
yeah,
all of
well,
the
okay, pay
hotels.
me $30,000
I'll be right
retainer,
back.
and I'll be there. So take a moment to think about like what is going to be helpful for you to know and how you can phrase that in a question. And also, I think it really does come down with like the connection in the relationship that you're building with your clients throughout the process for them to not only want to tell you how everything went, like specifically because they're like really, like when you go to a business, a small business, like and it's like you met the owner who owns the little trattoria and he's like coming over to like say hello and ask you how your meal is. Like, I want you to win. I want you to know how great this experience was. I want other people to like understand like how much you care. Like, I am invested in
Yes.
him and his business versus I go to just some like no name. I can't remember. It was fine. I don't care. Like, it's fine. I got what I needed. I'm fed, but it wasn't an experience that I feel personally connected to. So take a look too at just kind of like the way you're engaging with your clients so that they really truly want you to know how it all
Yes.
turned out.
Two questions that I ask that I feel elicit some of the best responses for, in my experience, is A, what were everyone's favorite experiences? And so what I want to know is that I'm not expecting that everyone enjoyed the exact same thing. Usually the type of response I get is like, well, my favorite was this and this and this, and my wife's favorite was this and this and this. And I really love when there's a family and they tell me all family members' favorites. Like, we all loved this, but then so and so really loved this. I like this. My husband liked this. That's like my favorite question. And then I ask, if we were to plan this trip all over again, what would you do differently?
Yeah.
And that helps me know a little bit about the trip, but that really helps me dig into them as travelers.
Yeah.
Because
And
a lot of times what they will say is like, we should have upgraded that room at that hotel, or we wish we would have stayed in this other hotel or this other area because our hotel wasn't as walkable as this one, or we wish we would have slowed down and spent more days in that destination. It helps me get to know them as travelers. And then when they come back to me in the future, I get to say, hey, remember when you told me blah, blah, blah about your trip last year? And they're like, oh, yeah,
mm-hmm.
thank you for protecting us from ourselves. I've had that happen.
Oh yeah, 100%. And so Ashley, I know also just like one last thing before we kind of like close out this particular thing, because if you are newer in business and you do actually have the time, I would actually, and this goes against everything I know and believe, ask for people to talk to you. Like literally be like, hey, do you have a few minutes to like hop on a call and let me know how your trip went? If you've formed that relationship, if you have that comfortability with them and you just make the ask, that's actually a very personal ask. So people like to say like no or to just ignore you, like that's a little bit more it's that's a little bit more than like not getting to the questionnaire, right? But it will really help you, like, because it'll show your genuine like desire to hear how their trip went, and you'll be able to ask follow-up questions. You'll be able to truly understand like, oh, like this is literally the greatest time in your business to do all the market research, all the kind of in-depth kind of learning and gaining insight from your clients. So make it, if you're like me, make it slightly awkward and make the time and just ask them to like hop on a call when they get back from their trip, because you would love to hear about their experience. And you can still go through some of these same questions, but it's going to be more of a dialogue, and that's okay. You just have an opportunity to listen and hear what comes of it.
And finally, whether you are brand new or super experienced, share your experience, your feedback questionnaire, the email you send, whatever it is, with other advisors and ask for their feedback on your feedback process. So Ashley, I would encourage you to go post it in our private Facebook group for the Advisor Accelerator, and anyone else, say your 2 or 3 closest colleagues, send them the email, send them the form, and pretend they are a client and say, how does this come off to you? Does it feel easy? Do the questions inspire you to answer? Is there anything about this that doesn't feel good or that could be improved, because I'm not receiving the amount of feedback that I'm hoping to? And with that thought, Brianna, what percentage of your clients would you estimate actually give you feedback?
Yeah,
And
that's a
reply?
great
Like,
question.
what does success look like?
Right. I would say Honestly, like 30 to 40%.
That's what I was going to say too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Uh-huh.
I mean, you might just need more reps too. um,
Yeah.
so don't like think that's like 100%, like everybody's dying to tell me how their trip went. And not that like you know what? This is funny too. Like so many times because I send like a holiday gift, there's so many people who like will receive their holiday gift and then write back to say, oh my God, this is so great. It makes it like we loved our trip. You never told me you loved your trip 7 months ago
Exactly. Like,
when I
good to
asked you, right?
know.
So people are funny, but so are we. We know how the game is played. Uh, okay, so I kind of think, Whitney, what do you think? I think people are going to be happy and surprised when they get some more information about. So let me just quickly tell you, a lot of people have questions about Loom videos. Like we
Like
do
a
this for
lot.
our clients. What are they? What's the purpose? What do you say? What's included? When do you send them? How long are they? There's so many questions about Loom videos, which is, it was a little bit surprising to us because we're like, oh, it's just so obvious. It's just so like natural, but maybe not. And so we're working on helping you understand this more. I don't know if we want to kind of like pin this one a little bit and just say, stay tuned. Or maybe.
Oh, you want to torture them like that? I mean, I feel like we could just, I don't think it's so, when I read these questions about, can you tell us more about these Loom videos? I feel that many people are overcomplicating it. It's,
It's
it's
literally a
really, it's
conversation
really
that's recorded.
simple.
Yeah. If somebody was sitting in front of you and we're like, great, let's go over this proposal or let's go over this final itinerary. I really want to make sure that you just feel so confident that you have all the information you need, that everything makes sense. What would you say?
So maybe there are a few details that I can share about what's in my final itinerary that I'm talking about. And maybe that helps to clarify because some of the questions here are like, but like literally, what are you saying? like what are you telling clients? So I think maybe does that feel helpful?
Sure. Let's try it.
Okay. So I'm just going to pretend I'm recording a video right now. I screen share the actual itinerary on my desktop as if a client is looking at it. First things first, I show them how to click on the app button with Travefy, email themselves the link, and download the trip plans app to access their itinerary. Then I remind them to make it available offline, and I explain why that's important. Then I remind them to check in online 24 hours prior to departure, and that's in my itinerary. So all I'm doing is scrolling through my own itinerary that I've created for them, reading everything that I've already typed for them, and just like saying it out loud, because I think that this is the other reason why I love the Loom videos and why clients love them, is because reading everything that we have in our final itineraries can feel really overwhelming. And hearing it actually makes it feel like, oh, that's far less complicated. Like I'm looking at like 3 paragraphs, like why is there so much text? But when Whitney says it, it's like, oh, that makes sense. That's easy. So I bet I spend the first 10 to 12 minutes on the first day or two simply explaining every single transfer in my itinerary is going to look like this. It's going to tell you where they're going to meet you, what their emergency contact information is if needed, and it's going to give you 3 bullet points of what to do when you can't find your transfer. And that is going to be on every single transfer in the itinerary. And I tell them that. And I walk them through every single bullet point as if the bullet points aren't there.
Yeah. So that's an important thing. Like, even though you might have a 12-day trip and there's like this many trains and this many transfers and this, you're explaining one in detail and being like, this applies to every time there's a transfer. It's not like you need to go to every, like the 7 transfers and say the same thing over again,
Right.
But you really just want to make sure that like that is understood and they
Yeah.
really feel confident in knowing like, this is how I find the transfer. This is if they don't show up, this is what I do, all of that stuff. Okay.
Then it's the hotel. So then I explain every single hotel in your itinerary is going to have the same verbiage. You are going to arrive prior to check-in time. We are going to be in touch with the hotel prior to your arrival to request early check-in. It cannot be guaranteed. If you can't get into your room right away, here's what I recommend you do. And I literally talk through that because that is the number one question I get from all clients. Then at the bottom of the hotel, I say whether or not their hotel has been paid for or not, whether it's a credit card guarantee or paid, whether it includes breakfast. And I say, Any incidentals incurred during your stay, meals, spa, laundry, etc., will be payable to the hotel upon checkout. So all of those words are in their itinerary. They're on their hotel. I'm literally speaking to them, reading those same words, sharing in more detail why that's there, and assuming that they're not going to read any of it. So I'm saying all of it. Then it usually comes a dinner reservation, and I explain all dinner reservations and your itineraries look the same. At the top, it will tell you whose name it's reserved under and where it is with a Google Map link to show you, are you 2 minutes away walking or are you 10 minutes away by taxi? And then at the bottom, it will say, if you want to cancel, please do this yourself. Here's the phone number. And if there is a cancellation policy, like a fee will be charged, that's there. So again, I walk them through all of that as if they can't read.
Right.
And then the same for the tours. And so the first 10 to 12 minutes of my video is not actually, you do this at 10:30 and you do this at 12 and then you do this at 2 and then go enjoy. It's not like that. It's more of like, this is the information you'll find in the itinerary. This is why this stuff is important. I need you to know this in order to have a seamless experience. And once I've explained all of that once, I don't need to continue to explain every single transfer and every single dinner reservation. Then I'm just like, now you have dinner here, and just keep scrolling, moving on. The other big thing that I spend a lot of time describing is train stations and ferries.
Right.
I assume that my clients have never been in a train station. And so I literally describe, when you arrive, you're going to walk in. This is what you're looking for. You need to go to your platform. This is what to expect. Because I've had clients have anxiety attacks over this type of overwhelm because they don't know what to do.
It's so new.
And the ferries in Greece are just insane. And so I manage their expectations so that they understand they will feel like cattle. I want them to know that before they get there, because if they don't know that, they are going to be wildly disappointed.
Yeah.
And so I want to mentally
serene yacht experience.
No.
No.
And I want to ease their anxiousness when they arrive and they see a line of 200 people and no boat. And then the boat comes and everybody's pushing and shoving to get on. I want them to be mentally prepared that this is what this is like. If there was a better way, I promise you we would know about it, other than, helicopters.
Yeah, I know. I just had a client opt for the helicopter. I'm like, that's not a good way to spend $2,800, but whatever.
I mean, maybe it is. Maybe. So that's my video. That's what I'm doing in my video.
Yeah.
What do you do? Is that helpful?
No. Yeah. I joke with Whitney all the time because I'm like, her videos are like 72 minutes long and she's telling people like where they can go to the bathroom. And so I feel like I do that, but I talk fast and I must not go into as much detail. Like, I feel like I'm saying the same things, but I'm not as colorful as I must just kind of like, the ferry's crowded, just get on the boat, whatever.
Which is also fine.
But like, again, this is also one of those things that it is kind of determined by the feedback that you get. Like when you have questions and you have, feedback around a certain element that they didn't understand, that wasn't clear, that you're still getting calls to cancel their dining. That's why you double down, hone in on what you need to cover in these, however you do sending your clients off, however customized your trips are. Do you need to do a Loom video if they're going to flop on the beach for 7 days? No. Like, that's a waste of time. So we're kind of talking about a specific type of trip and a specific type of client. And again, running this through the filter of your ideal client, your specific experience that you provide, and if it is applicable to making it a better experience for these clients.
Yeah, to clarify, I have a frequent cruiser going on an Alaskan cruise today, and I have a frequent traveler checking into a nice hotel in the US in 2 days. They have not received a video. They don't need one. It's a
waste of anybody's time.
They don't need one. They've received an email with all the details. They will get their bon voyage. They know how to reach me. I haven't made a video for that. So thank you for saying that you have to make sure what you're doing as part of your client experience makes sense for your client segments, but makes sense for the trips that you're planning. It's not all just black and white.
100%. I think we have time for one more question.
We do?
Maybe. We'll make it fast. This is about surprise and delight, and we have a whole section in our masterclass that is about like delight, because I think it is a very important part of client experience. And this is the above and beyond. And a lot of times people are kind of like, it sounds great, but how? And so, Tammy, your question was, I would love to know what others are doing to surprise and delight clients. I also need a little push with doing Looms. So we already talked about that. We'll talk about it more. But surprising and delighting our clients is, I think, such a huge part of client experience. But it can be a little daunting because maybe that's not like our quote unquote love language. Like we're like, yeah, I made you a great trip. I got everything, I crossed all the T's and dotted all the I's. Like, what are we talking about here? So, and also, like we said at the beginning, sometimes these are just ideas that we throw out there and you consider, like, does this work for my brand? Does this work for the type of clients that I'm working with? But I really do believe, I read a few months ago on the recommendation, like from a ton of people, but Haley specifically, this book, Unreasonable Hospitality. And it's about the number one restaurant in the world, which was in New York, 11 Madison Park, and how they earned that title by focusing, doubling down on unreasonable hospitality, which I kind of felt like, of course, every restaurant on the top 50 list, on the top 100 list, whatever, has amazing food, has the most incredible chef. It's like, but what is the thing that actually sets them apart and or makes a difference to the experience that clients walk away from? And it was such a good book, so highly recommend for any industry that is specifically service-based, is because so much of an experience someone has is like how you've made them feel and the things that were unexpected, right? It's kind of like, yes, you definitely do need to manage expectations and deliver on the expectations that you set forth. But if you can surprise and delight and go above and beyond and create moments of wow, those are the things that people remember. And they're also the things that people tell other people about. They're the stories behind everything. And storytelling is such a huge part of creating a memorable client experience. All that to say, that's why I think it's important.
Yes.
Now, how do we do it, right? Like, sounds good, thank you, but what do I actually do? I feel like we can just spitball for a couple of minutes and just say, hey, here are some ideas. I do some of these, and also there's some of these that I say it sounds good and haven't implemented them yet. So don't think I'm over here.
You'll let us know which are which.
Surprising and delighting at all turns, Okay, so one of the things is handwritten notes. I feel like it's a kind of low-hanging fruit. I feel like it's kind of easy. I also don't actually handwrite myself, but somebody on my team does, so it is still handwritten.
Oh, you can't read my handwriting. Oh my God. It is out of control. So bad.
I find it to be just like, I think I already mentioned this. Snail mail is an easy kind of like win for me. And so when somebody becomes a client, we have like these little postcards like that we send out as soon as they sign the thing, and it just arrives in the mail. Same thing for anniversaries, birthday.
So what is, that's when they become a client of just like, hey, so thrilled. We're planning a trip together.
Yeah. It's just a little postcard branded Milk and Honey, blah, blah, blah. We send out birthday codes birthday notes, cards every month. It's just kind of a running spreadsheet where like every client's birthday is like inputted. And so like the month of April, great. These people have birthdays, send them a card. We have a thank you. Like if somebody refers somebody, we have like this like gift card service that's kind of like, here's where you live and here's like the cool things that are like available near you.
Wait, that exists?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I make my assistant research it.
Oh my God, no. There's a
oh my God, what is it?
I'll have to ask my assistant.
You don't even know what it is.
Listen, I said I do it, but I is quote unquote.
It's Kelsey.
It is.
Please, I need that. I'm always like, can you go find like
a we don't need to do Starbucks gift cards, guys.
No, I try to avoid it as often as I can.
And now, unless you live in like Timbuktu and like Starbucks is a welcome treat. But even like for like my teacher appreciation, I'm like, is Starbucks really your favorite coffee shop? Or are you just saying that? Yeah. Like, so anyway, yes. So
cool.
Or where they live, those types of things. And like I said, I send itineraries. I send, holiday gifts. So that's something personal and unexpected as well. So those are like send things that are like outside of like their actual trip experience. Anything you want to add there?
I think that one idea I've had that I've never implemented is sending postcards. So when I'm traveling, like if I'm in
Yes.
Portugal,
I
if
think
I'm there,
that's such a good
sending
idea. Yeah.
postcards to
Yeah.
clients who've either they've been there and it's just like, hey, I'm here thinking of you, or they're going to be
To
there
go there.
soon.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm
Yeah.
here, I'm thinking of you. Or, hey, we haven't planned this for you. I
But I
think
think
you
you would
would
enjoy
love
it.
this destination.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good idea.
I always think of it when I'm traveling and then I
Yeah.
never
I
do
know you
it.
don't do
I
it.
really
Yeah.
need to do it. I said, I feel like it's such a good idea, but I
It's a great idea. It's a great idea. And the
do that
other
after I
thing,
post on Instagram when I'm traveling.
yeah. The other thing that I'm trying to think through more is unique and personal experiences like during their trip that are just kind of like unexpected. So, I mean, a welcome amenity of a bottle of wine is something I kind of do because it's so easy, but it isn't personal. So I'm trying to kind of think of
Yeah.
like what is more personal? What would
Well,
they
do you include
actually
a
enjoy more?
personal, do you ask like for the hotel to put a personal note with the
Yes,
wine?
there's always a
Yeah.
note. There's always like it's on our, with our stationery if they will print it.
If the person is active online and without being a total creep, if I can get a nice photo
Yeah.
of them as a couple or their family or their dog or their baby or something, whatever the situation is, I've asked hotels to frame photos. This I feel is like great idea, but it's really probably only going to happen at like the highest end 5-star hotels.
Yeah.
Um,
But sometimes it's like if it's a birthday, I'll do a birthday cake instead of a bottle of
sure.
wine. Like I've done like say if I'm like doing a high tea reservation in London and like they're celebrating their honeymoon or their anniversary, like I'll try to like go to somewhere they're going to be and be like, hey, it's their anniversary. And they'll have, the dessert come out with like happy anniversary written or
Yep.
something like, so it's like unexpected, right? It's the different like times like, oh my gosh, she's thinking of me. And so all the things that you can pick up through like communicating with your clients beforehand and asking little questions and just noting down something that might come up that you could use. It's just a good way to kind of be like, and even I would say like thinking of where they're at. So if they are in Switzerland, like Swiss chocolate makes sense. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's just kind of being like, hey, turn on my brain. What can I do? What makes sense? What could be a surprise for your better clients? Like investing in them
Yeah.
is
So
worth the investment.
clients who share photos with me and who I really love and who are awesome to work with, after they get home, I use a service like Smallwoods or FrameBridge or something like that, and I frame one of their nice photos they shared with me and I send it to them in the mail, totally unexpected. That's
Love
usually
that.
like a $50 to $100 type of investment, so it's not for every single trip. And another idea,
Actually, I really love that because I'm like literally writing it down because I ask people to like in my feedback form is a place for them to share their photos and they love sharing their photos. These are our they tell me like why they're sharing these specific photos. And so
oh,
how great
cool.
if I could like make it a gift. Oh my
Yeah.
God. Okay.
Yeah. I've gotten like people really love that and it's super unexpected. And another idea that I've had that I've never implemented, but maybe your gift card link will help me, is like if somebody goes to an exotic destination where there's like a specific cuisine, like
Mm.
Thailand or India or something like this, finding the best Thai or Indian restaurant in the city 6 months
Mhm.
after their trip and like send them a note with like a gift card to that restaurant and it just like, hey, go enjoy some of your favorite dishes, like kind
Super
of
cute.
it like offers an opportunity to like bring back like remember when we were in Thailand and like that's how I am when I go to restaurants like that with my husband. I'm
Yes.
like, oh man, we had like the mango rice pudding every single day. That was so great.
It's so
So
funny. There's a Moroccan restaurant that opened down the street, and I was like, oh, and it was really authentic. And I went there, and I wanted to tell like the owner like about my trip to Morocco and like the first time I had tangine, and like I wanted to like bring myself back to this experience because I went to that restaurant and because I like reliving it. I
exactly.
mean, it wasn't as good as Morocco, but it did the job.
Yeah. So I
Anyway,
hope
all good stuff.
everybody, you found a few nuggets in here. And if you like this style of podcast, maybe we'll do it some more. So send us a message and let us know. We had fun, going through the questions that came in. As a reminder, if you haven't listened to our first 3 client experience podcasts in the series, go back and tune in. And also, we are hosting a Crafting Your Signature Client Experience Masterclass coming up soon. One masterclass will be on June 18th. You could also attend June 19th. They're both the exact same. You just pick the one that works for your schedule. To learn more about the masterclass and to sign up, you can go to mastersandtravelpod.com/client experience. Thank you to those of you who submitted questions for us to chat about today. We will see you soon.